Roll call is noted, Rachel?
Yes, noted.
Thank you so much. Do we have any comments or correspondence?
We do not.
We do have a public hearing this evening, the second public hearing for the ordinance 709. So at this moment, I am going to open the public hearing for ordinance 709, the second reading.
So you should ask if anyone
Yep.
wishes to speak.
Give everybody a moment to process that, and then if anybody would like to speak, please step forward. Hi, Albert.
Hi,
How are you?
pretty good. Abra Dexter, 208 North 5th Street in Waterford. I have a question about, is this something that goes into effect after there's been a court? Because it does say convicted of.
Yeah, so I guess I'll give some background on what this pertains to.
Mhm.
So, right now, the officer, whether we're talking about a code enforcement officer or a police officer, issues the citation. And at this point, the judge has really, really broad discretionary authority over how much the citation amount is actually going to be, regardless of what the officer has stated on the citation itself. And so Bob Jones, our judge, can take a citation on conviction and say, hey, it's gonna be $5. This is really a two-pronged thing that's going on here. One, we're saying, hey, look, it's just not worth our officers' time to write a ticket for a $5 citation. Either they're guilty or they're not guilty, right? In which case, officers should be charged with writing citations for things that they've observed and can actually prosecute successfully through the court process. So that's piece number one. Piece number two is a $5 penalty doesn't deter anybody from anything. In particular, dogs in the park and pooping in the park. That's really what's driving a lot of this. Does that answer the?
Well, yes, but see, so I run into questions
Okay.
where, like, let's say, is the if somebody is given a citation for an
Right.
ordinance violation, is it
Right.
automatically filed with the court? Or,
Yes.
okay, so
So-
let's say, take the noxious weed one.
Okay.
The noxious weed one, normally, the ordinance, the new ordinance
Yep.
says that if it's not something already
Yep.
listed in the,
So let's talk about that one. So there are steps for that. So if it is in the zoning code, there are prescribed notice processes that have to happen. So hey,
Yeah.
I've got a boat parked in my front yard, I've got noxious weeds, I've
Mhm.
got whatever would be a zoning related thing specific to your household. And so we're required to give notice. We can't go out and just go, hey, here's your citation, right?
oh, okay,
So we're required to give notice, and then
Mhm.
you have a period of abatement. So that
Yeah.
ranges from 10 to 30 days, depending upon
okay,
what it
so
is.
it's not violation notification, it's an actual citation.
Right, so your dog pooped, just you sped, you
Yeah.
parked in the wrong place, like this is an observable phenomenon, not zoning related, but related
Okay.
to a behavior or a conduct. You were resisting arrest,
Mhm.
you were truant,
Mhm.
right? These are not necessarily like property related things, they're person related things.
But with the noxious weed,
Yep.
so it does have a process for, I wanna say adjudication all the way through,
Right.
you know, like if you haven't paid in a year, you haven't paid in 2 years, whatever.
Yep.
But it also has a clause in there says that it is subject to this new
Yeah, so
one,
you,
so when does that kick,
after your
in.
notice of abatement period is there.
yeah,
So you get, I'm going from memory, I think it's 10 days to
Yep,
abate.
10
So
days to
hey,
abate, yeah.
So hey, you're out of compliance, here's your
Mhm.
10 days to abate. And so
Mhm.
you get 10 days to go out and mow the grass or get somebody to mow the grass or whatever it
Whatever.
is,
Mhm.
right? Okay, so you've now abated the nuisance, there's no citation that
No,
comes after that,
no.
right? It's just done.
but isn't there a conflict between if you don't,
Yes,
and they put a now they file a
Yes.
citation, which ordinance controls that citation then? Does
This
it go by, it'll
this,
go by this,
Yeah.
so then the whole language in the ordinance for the noxious weeds, that whole second part after you
Right.
haven't complied isn't no longer,
there's a lot of update that needs to be done
Relevant.
all the way around, so
okay,
most
so
of
that's
the-
just something that needs
Yeah,
to be.
most of the sections of our code just references this one, penalty section.
Mm-hmm,
There are a few that specify some other specific penalty.
well, and I know this
Yeah.
one does say that if there's a specific penalty, that is in place, and this is, you know, if there's
Right.
not, then there's this, but that one that I looked at had both.
Yep.
So I just was curious as to how we resolve the
Yeah, this-
conflict between,
this
cause if
one
I'm a homeowner,
Yep.
I want, and I get that, I want the remedy that's on the ordinance, not the 250 the first day, 350 the next day, because it says each day is a separate offense.
different, so that, even that is a little bit different, so,
Isn't that what the ordinance says
yeah,
though?
yeah, so, for zoning related stuff, right, again, you've got an opportunity to abate it, and now the question is, how many, let's say I'm not gonna mow my grass, okay, I'm just totally not gonna get into mowing my grass, I'm just interested in seeing how far things go. So the grass is long, you can go every single day and get a new penalty. That's a $250 penalty under this code section for every day you went past 10 days. So where
Yeah, but doesn't it say on there that each day that you don't,
is a
it is
separate
a
violation?
separate violation?
Except it's all for the same thing,
Yeah,
right?
but if it's, but doesn't the thing on there say that each with the first violation it's this, with the second violation it's this, with the third violation it's this?
Yeah, I'm hearing you, just not
I
the way
don't-
that's,
I don't see how it doesn't, the way it's worded, it seems to me that it is possible to get, within a few days, $1,000 worth of fines for that same thing.
okay,
I mean, I can see it makes sense that you have a building that's gonna fall on somebody and you need
Right.
them to fix it.
right,
But if I have a few thistles in my yard, it doesn't make as much sense. So that's what I'm saying, is that noxious weed one with it having that penalty, the new system or whatever,
Yep.
it is subject to that.
so let's say for a minute that we go with that thought
Uh-huh.
process, okay? My question would be, why didn't they remedy it in the first 10 days?
I honestly don't know, but my concern is
Right.
that we have trouble down the road when somebody comes in and says,
It's not, I'm gonna ask Rick a question, right? Rick, how many times in the last 3 years have we had to go and mow somebody's grass because they failed to comply with a $5 penalty? Handful?
I'd say
Two,
two a
three.
year maybe.
Yeah, something like that? Okay, so now talk through what happens after you're done making that phone call.
So to the,
Yep. So you're gonna-
I mean, for $5 I'll have you mow it.
Right,
But that's not my point. My
Right.
point
That's-
is, are we gonna run into somebody coming after the village because it's not clear? Do we follow this penalty procedure? Do we follow this penalty procedure? Which one is relevant? Which one takes precedence over the other? I mean, if that one line wasn't in the, I wanna say wasn't in the ordinance, it's a this big of a fine, it's $200 a day or whatever. If that
yep. I'll
bottom
look it up.
line on the ordinance didn't say it is subject to the new ordinance, then I wouldn't see any conflict. But because the new ordinance is full of shalls, you shall get this, you shall get that fine, you shall get this fine. I can see it being a situation where you get into conflict, or somebody gets into conflict with how that is processed.
So violation penalties, in addition to such other remedies as may be available as set forth herein, violations of this chapter are subject to enforcement penalty provisions described in chapter 1, article 2 of this
Which
code,
is the one we're doing now.
which is what we're doing now,
Right.
right? So otherwise in here, it says,
So, because I mean, it has a time period, like
Yep.
if it's over so many days or so many, and I'm saying, but if a citation isn't issued until, way to the end of that process, that's one thing. But if any citation is issued because you failed to do it in your 10 days and you get a citation, now, which one,
So-
cause it says that the village can
so
do it and bill you or whatever, can mow it and bill you and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
That's
listen.
after those 10 days.
I'm just not seeing a conflict ever. So section C is a compliance verification form shall be completed in the initial notice to be completed and returned as proof of compliance in 10 days. So it's referencing the 10-day notice period. So hey, you're in violation, we're giving you notice of the violation, and then it's referencing this for the financial remuneration for if somebody doesn't bring it into compliance. I'm just, yeah, I'm not,
So basically what it's saying is then after the 10 days, they issue a citation and now you start the
so we would,
clock on the
yeah,
two.
if you go back up here in, let me find the section, it
I
talks
only
about,
picked that one because it seemed to me, that one seemed the most glaring because all the other ones have a comment and
So
then it doesn't.
subsequent violations occurring within a 12-month period after the initial notice shall not be given further notices, right? Because we've gotta,
Right.
we've gotta
Right.
have, spend time to, so like, hey, you've been given notice,
But
right,
like I said, subsequent notices after a 12-month period wouldn't matter because if they haven't fixed it,
right,
you're racking up whatever per day.
right. So I'm gonna pivot for a minute.
Yeah,
Liz Gamble, do you have any people on your street that do not comply with noxious weed ordinances?
Depends on what noxious weeds would be
Right,
considered.
depends on your definition,
I
which
know,
by the way, they're up here. I would tell
Yeah.
you, there's one 2 doors down, okay?
I
Right.
live on Fifth, so,
Right,
you know.
so,
But I'm just curious, cause I don't know, that just seemed to me to be one that I was talking with some people and we were talking about ordinances and stuff like that, and it
Sure.
just, it's one that seems there's a opportunity for vagueness there that,
so that,
I'm not a lawyer, so I don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
but,
so they've got 10 days to
Mhm.
fix it. If they
And then
don't
it
have it
switches
fixed in
to
10
this.
days, this clearly says it's coming to right here.
to right there, so then we don't, I mean, then the 12 months and whatever isn't,
So
Really
let's say on the first one, right, they fail to comply, and
Yeah, I get-
now we've got to order an abatement. So Rick picks up the telephone and says, hey,
He
you
does it,
had a
he-
citation issued, it's taxable to the property if they don't comply with it. Where this most comes into challenge is when we've got a foreclosed home. We haven't had
Yeah.
that as an issue in like a decade in America, right? But in 08, we had a big problem with it, where you have a bank that would take ownership of the home
and not, and.
and
not
just
doing
let
with
it
yeah.
go, right? So that's
My husband is in finance, in
Yeah,
UK finance, so I don't.
you know, more than anything, this is not written for the homeowner that, you know, broke his leg and you know, has
No,
a
I
hard
didn't
time
figure
getting
that it
from
was,
this.
but I thought the way it was worded before gave the village some leniency to determine whether something, you know, I'm less concerned about your not following the thistle regulations than I am about
Right.
you not following fire code regulations
I
or
think
something
the
like that.
question comes in on, does everybody get treated the same or not? Right? And so right now, the answer is not. And that's because we leave it up to the subjective judgment of one individual, right? If the person comes in and is dressed a certain way or presents himself a certain way, all credit to that individual as a judge. Every judge is required by the electors to do this, but he gets to make a lot of subjective judgment, ranging from $1,000 down to $5. What this does is say, hey, Judge Jones, did they do it or not, right?
Well, and I get the shells.
If they did, then
I
this
get the
is what
shells, but
penalty
I'm
is.
just, like I said, I'm just concerned that it gets to be a little bit draconian. So,
Fair enough.
but that was just, I just wanted to clarify
Yes,
if
ma'am.
there was any conflict there. Thank you.
Thanks.
Can we, you wanna do this on item number 1, or do you want to?
A whole discussion.
That's kinda, we're just gonna do the
talk
public
about
hearing,
it.
then we, if that's okay. Thank you, Robert. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on public hearing 709? All right, one last go of anybody else. All right, hearing none, I'm looking for a motion to close public hearing, the second public hearing of ordinance 709.
So moved.
Second. Hearing a second, a first and a second, all in favor of closing 709?
Aye.
Aye.